Hey guys, Mr. Gardner here, coming with you for the second part of our lesson on circles. If you remember, our objective is that we want to be able to use the formulas for circumference and area to solve problems in real world scenarios with circles. So we're going to continue into that objective, but now we're going to talk about how we can manipulate these two formulas using what we know to solve when we're given different pieces of information. So we know that circumference is equivalent to pi times the diameter of a circle. And we know that area is equal to pi times the radius squared. So we know these are our formulas. And we also know from what we were looking at is that the diameter goes all the way across a circle. So if we're talking about a circle, right, then the diameter is how far across. So that would be our D for here, right? And then when we're talking about radius, we're talking about half that distance. So just going halfway. Okay, not going all the way across the circle, but going from the edge into the middle is the radius. Okay, and so we know just from looking at those in definitions that the diameter is the whole thing, and it's two of the radiuses, right? If you cut anything in half, then a full one is 2 halves, obviously, which means that the radius is just half of the diameter. So with this information, we can find a lot of different things. All right, so from this information, just doing a little bit of algebra, we can see that if circumference is equal to pi times the diameter, then if we just do the same thing to both sides, which is divide by this number, so divide by 3.14, it's the same thing we would do if we were solving any kind of one-step problem, right? Pi really is just a representation of a number. It's not really a variable because it doesn't vary. It's always going to be this. We just use it as a representation, right? Then you can see that diameter is going to be equivalent to the circumference divided by pi. And remember, if it's confusing, pi is equal to 3.14. That's why I'm showing it as division here, to see that we can just divide it out. So then for any circumference, if we divide it by pi, we're going to get the diameter. And that's really nice because once you have the diameter, you can find the radius, right? And once you have the radius, then you can find the area, okay? So that's really nice. But what if you're only given area? Well, again, we can find radius from the area formula. So again, it's the same kind of thing here. We know area is pi, radius squared. And again, if I just want to isolate radius squared, then I just divide by pi. So this time I'll just show it as dividing the symbol. All right, so then I know radius squared is equal to area divided by pi. All right, and then once you get that number, you just got to think about what number multiplies twice to make the number you're given here. For the purposes of our class, you pretty much just use a calculator for that, unless it's one of your sight ones that you should memorize, the first 12 squares. All right, so once we have all this information, we can use it to answer some questions. So let's take a look at a couple examples here of how we can use these formulas. So let's say David has a jacuzzi in his yard, right? And he knows that his jacuzzi has an area of 200.96 square feet. But he wants to know how wide it is. Maybe he wants to put a volleyball net across his jacuzzi so they can play volleyball while they're relaxing. So I always like to draw a picture when I'm doing these. It just helps me make sense of the problem. And so he knows that it's the area. Okay, so we're talking about the inside filling. All right, but he wants to know the distance across. Okay, so let's do that in another color so we can see it a little bit better. We'll do that as rainbow. So he wants to find this distance here. All right, and we don't know what that is. Okay, but we can use what we do know to find it. So we do know that area equals 200.96. Okay, so that's really nice. And we also know that if we're finding area, the area is pi r squared. So area equals pi r squared. So if I want to just find r squared, then I know r squared is equal to area divided by pi. Okay, and so again, I'm now looking for r squared, and from there I can find diameter. So I know that this is 200.96 and this is 3.14. Now, we could do this math out and it might take a minute to get all the answers, but if you put it into a calculator, you get that r squared is equal to 64. All right, and from there, we just have to think, what can we multiply twice to get 64? Or what is the square root of 64? So then we know that r equals 8, because 8 times 8 is going to give me 64. So now if I know r, then I can tell you what diameter is, because diameter, if we remember, diameter equals 2 r's. So diameter equals 2 times 8, which is going to give us 16 for our diameter. And we should use units, so it's going to be 16 feet. So that jacuzzi is going to be 16 feet across. All right, and if we want to know circumference, since we have this information, circumference equals pi diameter, then we would know that circumference equals 16 pi feet. All right. So now let's look at this other one. This one's about basketball now. So again, we want to draw a picture. Let's read the problem. A basketball rim has a circumference of 56.52 inches. If you shoot a basketball with a diameter of 20 inches, will it fit in the rim? All right, well, I don't know the real measurements of a basketball, so maybe I know a real basketball will fit, but maybe this is some kind of irregular basketball. So let's just draw a picture so we know what we're talking about. So we know that this diameter right here that I've just drawn is 20 inches. Okay, we don't know this diameter, but we know all the way around the rim, right? Circumference is 56.52. Okay, so again, we know that circumference equals pi times the diameter. All right, and we want to find the diameter because if this is wider than the rim, then there's no way the basketball is going to fit in there. So we know that circumference is 56.52. We're trying to find diameter. So again, using this, if we divide out the pi from the one side and divide it in the other side, then we know diameter is going to equal circumference divided by pi. So we can use what we know. We know that 56.52 is our circumference. And we're going to divide that by 3.14. And if we do that, we get 18. And so now I know that this is 18 inches. So if I think about it, if I'm shooting a basketball, it's 20 inches across. Is it going to fit in an 18-inch rim? Nope. Because 20 is greater than 18. Now, a real basketball is like 9 inches diameter. So a real basketball would fit. This is just one of those giant basketballs. It's like one of those ones you would get out of the Walmart bin. So we can see by doing the math that we can find circumference, diameter, anything we need as long as we're given a piece of information. And it is one of the amazing things about that number pi.